Welcome to the TAtech podcast. Tune in for dialogue between HR experts to amp up your HR strategies. Don't worry, we'll mix in a few laughs as we know you need it.
This is Shannon Alford, and you're listening to the TAtech podcast. There's no denying that talent acquisition is rapidly changing at an unprecedented rate. The use of advanced technology and artificial intelligence, as well as advanced analytics, is quickly becoming the industry standard, and many are wondering why their jobs that was once very people-centric has become filled with technology and tools that make them part futurist, part TA, and part data analyst. Then take into account the global pandemic, and many organizations are taking this time to rethink their practices and prepare for what the future may hold. But what is the future of talent acquisition? Today, our guest is Peter Weddle, who is perfect to discuss this topic. He is the CEO of TAtech. He's also served as the CEO of 3 HR consulting companies. He's also attended West Point, Oxford University, and holds advanced degrees from Middlebury College and also Harvard University. Peter, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Shannon. It's great to be here.
You and I have known each other for a few years now and had some really great conversations throughout the years. I'm really happy to have you join me here today. I know I covered a lot in the intro, but can you tell me just a little bit more about your background?
Sure. I have been in HR my entire career in one way or another, but always with a connection to technology. My fascination has always been the intersection of people and technology. Back in the mid-'90s, back in the dark ages, I sold a company that I had started. It was arguably one of the largest in the country that used computers to match people to jobs. And I had a lucky break, landed a job as a biweekly columnist for the Wall Street Journal, covering the employment space on the internet. And that gave me the catbird seat as the internet was exploding with new capabilities, new functionality all around talent acquisition. So in 2007, 2008, right in the middle of the Great Recession, it seemed to me that the industry, this brand new technology industry for recruiting, had matured enough that it needed a trade association. Mm-hmm. So I founded what is today TAtech, and it serves as the centerpiece of the trade of the industry for talent technology. It's a global organization, and its members cover job boards, social media sites, aggregators, AI and machine learning companies, programmatic ad buying companies, recruitment advertising and marketing agencies, virtually any organization that uses technology to help employers recruit top talent. Collectively, the membership powers or operates 70,000 sites today.
Awesome. Are you getting a lot of employer interest in the association lately, or is it mainly vendors and those types of organizations that really participate in TAtech?
We're seeing a lot more interest on the part of employers. I mean, obviously, as you said in the introduction, technology is playing a much bigger role in the recruiting team. But there's also, a lot of disruption going on in the workplace itself, thanks to technology. So while recruiters are working to absorb all this technology in the jobs they have, the jobs for which they are recruiting are changing at warp speed as well, thanks to the introduction of technology. Whole new industries are being created, and other industries are in decline. So it's an area where you really need to stay up to speed. You need to become conversant in what's the state of the art and how best to apply it to your particular enterprise or organization. And I think employers are finding that the best way to do that is through a dialogue. They want the companies that build this stuff, those are our members, they want them to know what recruiters and talent acquisition teams and HR departments need to be successful. And on the other hand, they want to know what is the capability of that technology, and equally as important, how do I take it and put it into the tech stack I already own?
Awesome. I know that's one of the big reasons that TAtech and direct employers have really partnered, is to really try to get our members more involved in the space and learning about different types of technologies. I know that we had some different conferences planned for this year. Unfortunately, COVID came and didn't allow those conferences to happen. But I know in the future we're hoping to do some of those conferences, those 101 conferences, to get people, companies and employers really up to speed on some of the technology that's out there.
Boy, you and me both. I can't wait to get back to in-person events so that we can actually, see and interact with people in the real world rather than via Zoom platform. Can't wait.
Right. I think there's a lot of Zoom fatigue. I was joking with one of our people on our marketing team today that yesterday was the first time I'd put on a nice shirt in 6 months. So kind of looking forward to getting back out there and having some good conversations with employers and also other people that are in our industry. How have you seen talent acquisition shift really in the past 10 to 15 years? I mean, I know obviously with COVID going on right now, some things have changed, but a lot of those kind of new technology and things were emerging prior to COVID. And kind of what have you seen over the last 10 to 15 years?
Well, I think back in the early days, let's push it back just a little bit further, maybe back to the year 2000. Really, we were questioning the role of technology in the recruiting team. How are we going to fit job boards and then aggregators and then social media sites into the strategies and tactics that we have underway? So the real dynamic was figuring out the role of technology. Today, it's exactly the opposite. We're trying to figure out the role of recruiters. All of the technology is now a given. It's obviously different in every organization, but there's no doubt that we're seeing an increasingly automated and increasingly intelligent technology-based recruiting function. And in that kind of environment, what are humans supposed to do? What
Right.
can they do that's best for their skill sets, their attributes, their characteristics?
Mm-hmm. And I know at your 2019 TAtech North America, you gave a presentation and you mentioned that there were 2 events that were happening that really were going to change pretty much everything as far as talent acquisition is concerned. One of those was, I think if I'm correct, was climate change, and the other one, that skips my mind, but there were 2 things that you mentioned. Can you talk about those 2 things and kind of what changes you see because of those 2 events?
Sure. As you might remember, I pointed to the approach of a point of no return.
Right.
And that point of no return is defined by 2 dynamics that are underway. The first is popularly known as the technological singularity. It's that point in time when machines are going to finally and forever become smarter than humans. Once we pass that point, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. Machines are going to be smarter than humans in every conceivable way. And that point of no return, according to the vast majority of scientists who work in artificial intelligence and machine learning, is just 2 decades away. It's the year 2040. But at the very same time that is happening, the UN's climate change policy group, the one that reviewed all of the latest research and took a look at all of the best scientific thinking, they discovered that the Earth's surface is going to warm to the point where it will be irreversible. I call that the climactic singularity. It's 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit above the average temperature of the Earth's surface back at the dawn of the industrial era. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but we're already at 0.9 degrees Fahrenheit higher than that point back in the 1800s when the industrial era began. And look at how severe the weather is. When it goes up another 0.6 degrees, the Earth will never, ever get cooler. We will have passed a point of no return for the climate as well. And I call the convergence of those two events, because that climatic singularity is going to also occur in the very same year, 2040. And that, to me, that is an event so huge, so impactful to the way we live our lives, to the very definition of what it means to be a human on this planet, that I call it the titanicity. It is something almost beyond imagination. It sounds like science fiction, but it is real, and it's going to occur in during the careers of most of the people listening to this podcast.
Yeah, I was just doing some math to see when I was going to retire, and unfortunately, I'll still be in the workforce at that point.
Yeah, and so, I wrote a book about the first singularity, the technological singularity, called Circa 2118, because I think, while the point of no return is 2040, what we humans are going to have to deal with, the changes in our lives, the changes in the way we work, the changes in the way we live, all of that will take 100 years to play out. So it's not like you and I are going to see everything, but we will feel the impact of a world defined by machines that are just flat smarter than we are. And when you lay on top of that an increasingly volatile weather system, because the planet is angry, we've abused it for too long, you really do have a very different kind of life experience. I don't think it overstates it. I don't think it's hyperbolic to describe it as an existential challenge.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, how do you feel the global, in our current situation, how do you feel the global pandemic has really impacted TA?
Well, I think, in fairness, talent acquisition isn't just dealing with the pandemic. It's dealing with the social justice movement. It's dealing with the recession.
Right.
We here at TAtech do a weekly newsletter for the talent acquisition community among employers. Mm-hmm. And I wrote a piece called "A Cure for Common Corporate Insanity." And what I was talking about there is that Albert Einstein defined insanity as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I think that's what a lot of companies are doing. They are looking at the impact of the pandemic, looking at the impact of the recession and the social justice movement, and a lot of hiring has stopped.
Right.
So what they are doing is they're doing what they've always done. They are reducing the budgets of recruiting teams. They're laying off recruiters. And yet at the very same time that they're doing that, they're telling those recruiting teams, now listen, the key to business success is high performers. So we want you to get out there and hire a whole bunch of high performers. And oh, by the way, while you're doing that, make sure that it's a diverse population, and that we have D&I well covered. So they're laying this huge requirement on the recruiting team, but at the same time they're going back to old habits, reducing the budget, cutting headcount.
Yeah, we actually had a D&I roundtable yesterday, and one of the things that one of the questions that we asked basically was, you're seeing your budget get cut, and you asked to do more with less. and pretty much everyone on that Zoom call started, nodding their head yes. So I definitely think that you're right. I mean, people do revert back to what they know, unfortunately, and start to reduce headcount and still expect all the work to get done. Do you think that technology, I mean, obviously it can play a part in that to help, but how do you feel, like, what do you think about AI and how that's going to play a role moving forward in talent acquisition?
Well, I think it is a challenge. I think the problem is that the capability of this intelligent technology is accelerating and growing so fast that we're quickly passing the point where humans can keep up. I mean, Moore's law said that the power of computers was going to double every 2 years. Well, that looks like horse and buggy kinds of rates compared to the way AI is developing. So I think, in the near term, there are two challenges. We do a biweekly webinar series for HR and talent acquisition people called TAtech Live. And when people register, we only ask them one question, and that is, in addition to the COVID-19 pandemic challenge, what is the single greatest challenge that you're facing in talent acquisition? And in many cases, among the top three responses, every time we run a program, is two things. The first is keeping up to date. How do we as talent acquisition professionals even know what are the capabilities out there, right, let alone what will work in our organization? And the second is, how do we integrate this stuff into our tech stack and make sure that it works as represented?
Right.
So I think, those are two big challenges that companies are going to have to address here and now, and they're not trivial by any means. And then, as we said at the very outset, as time goes along and this stuff becomes more and more powerful, we're going to have to really figure out where humans fit in.
Okay. Yeah, and I would agree with that. And another thing that you and I had talked about actually last year was helping companies understand what AI really is. And I know a lot of people tout that their systems are powered by AI and that type of thing. But I think for some people or some organizations, if they use AI in their product descriptions, that employers are going to gravitate towards it, when in all actuality their system may not really be true AI. It may be more of a table or a matching type of a situation. And I know the one-on-one series that we were going to have this year really covered what really is AI. And I feel that that's something that we still need to do in 2021.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, there's even an argument among AI developers about what AI is. So if they can't get agreement, it's going to be tough for us lay people who are trying to put the stuff to work. But I do think, to your point, we need to be at least conversant enough that we can tell when we're listening to hype, when we're listening to technobabble, and when we're listening to people who really do have a product with powerful, intelligent technology, deep learning, machine learning, natural language processing, any of the variations of artificial intelligence that we are able to employ today. And those really are just the precursor. The power of the technology is just unlimited and continues to advance every day.
Right. And one thing you mentioned earlier, you talked about the social justice movement. Do you think technology can make a difference for companies trying to do better in the D&I space?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because obviously it's on everybody's mind these days. And, I'm sure your email box, as is mine, is filled with invitations to webinars and discussions about how best to advance a company's D&I. And I think it's important to to examine and, where appropriate, adopt new strategies and tactics. I do think that is a worthwhile exercise. But here's the rub. As you and I were talking about the other day, culture starts at the top.
Right.
And a talent acquisition team can have really some of the best strategies, the best thought through tactics. They can do it all right. But if it isn't a true facet of the company's culture, they will not be successful. And that was brought home, glaringly in a story in the New York Times this past Monday about a company called Carta, which was a Silicon Valley, or maybe still is, Silicon Valley unicorn that, really a very successful company in the financial services place. And their CEO made a lot of public statements. They even promoted it on billboards in the Valley about how every employee and companies in the future should be an owner of the company. That, the old way of working was really more about serfdom, and the future was going to be about people owning a piece of the rock. The problem is that apparently that didn't happen. And the company has now been sued by a number of former employees. And what's most tragic is the title of the article about this company. It was Talking Equality but Not Practicing It. And if a company says all the right things, but because of the culture from the top, it doesn't walk the talk, then no matter what the talent acquisition team does, it will not be successful.
That is a great point. And we touched a lot on that. Well, I know you and I have had that conversation a few times, and I know that during our roundtable we had yesterday, that was really touched on, because I think everyone out there is looking for, technology, to really help them do this. And technology, I feel, can play a part in it, but like you said, it needs to be part. If your culture is not one that actually promotes diversity, it doesn't matter what piece of technology you use, you still won't have a diverse organization. So definitely on the same page with you there. And I know that I've been asked that question a lot, and you're right. I've had so many things in my inbox about diversity webinars and different, just different things around diversity that people are inviting us to and trying to get us to participate on. But yeah. So another quick question I have for you. You see technology every single day. You live it, breathe it. It's what you do. Is there a area in technology, as far as something that's related to TA, that you're extremely curious about, and why?
Well, I am fascinated with the general area of automation. That covers programmatic ad buying. It covers artificial intelligence and machine learning, and there are some other technologies. But what fascinates me about that is a question that I think we're going to cover in the joint event that TAtech and Direct Employers is going to do later this fall, and that is, can there be such a thing as candidate empathy when there's so much technology touching the candidate? Can machines be empathetic? And if they can't, then if we're using this technology so much, how do we, humans who are still in the process, humans are still in the loop, if you will, how do we convey that empathy in a way that we optimize the candidate's experience?
Awesome. And I know you mentioned, kind of got ahead of me a little bit. I know we're going to be sponsoring or actually co-hosting your conference November 12th and 13th. Strategic Conversations About Talent Acquisition. How must the funnel change? So, can you talk a little bit about that conference? I mean, I know I can, but you're our guest today, and I'd rather have you cover that. So,
well, as you well know, and can probably describe better than I, we're very excited about this event because it's completely different from every other conference that we have seen in the digital space. All of those conferences are pretty much like an in-person conference. They're just delivered on a digital platform. So you log into the conference and you're basically talked at for an hour or 3 hours or 5 hours, however long the conference goes on. What we've decided to do is to make the attendees part of the program. You know, what we want to do is have strategic conversations about really important topics in our space. So each session will begin with a 20-minute discussion. One person from the industry side, one person from the employer side, talking about an important topic like, is there such a thing as candidate empathy in an era of recruitment automation? And then we're going to open up the floor to all of the people who attended the event. So unlike at an in-person event, where if you're lucky, you're just one or two people who are called on for a Q&A, what we want to do is actually engage in a strategic dialogue with everybody who wants to talk to the speakers or the discussants, if you will, about that particular topic. We can bring them up on the Zoom platform. People can see each other. They can have a meaningful conversation about these topics. And I think that's the way that we really move the needle in terms of mutual understanding and eventually mutual benefit. Mm-hmm. So I think this is going to break new ground. This is going to be a way for people to really engage with thought leaders in an impactful way and to really have their say, to be able to offer their views and thereby participate in the dialogue.
Awesome. What are, again, I could probably answer this too, but what are some of the topics people can look forward to at the event?
Well, let's see. How can a corporate career site help an employer advance its D&I efforts? What steps should recruiters take to ensure that they maximize their ROI in technology? What's the appropriate role for technology in a company that practices values-based recruitment? And one that you know is very important given everything we just talked about. What can recruiters do to ensure their AI-based recruiting tools aren't promoting bias?
Awesome. I know another thing you mentioned was how there will be conversation leaders, and how you mentioned that there will be people from the TA side and then people from the solution provider side as well. The people that we talked about from the employer side will be primarily from the TAtech Top 100. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. There is, I think, it's a perfectly appropriate celebration every year of the top 100 HR influencers. This recognizes people who are really helping to advance HR in a meaningful way. And while from time to time talent acquisition people are included, they really don't get, in our view, the visibility that they deserve. So we are launching in September the top 100 most influential TA thought leaders, be drawn from both employers, staffing firms, RPOs, and from industry. And what we want to do is we want to recognize these folks and celebrate the innovation and the advancement that they've helped to ferment in the talent acquisition space. But we want to do it differently than the way other lists like this come out. Usually they're kind of one-offs. Hey, everybody, here's the top 100 HR influencers, and that's fine. But what we want to do is we want to do the celebration all year long. So we're going to introduce the top 100 in 4 seasonal classes. In other words, in September, we'll announce the fall class, the first 25 of the top 100 talent acquisition thought leaders. Then in the winter, we'll introduce the winter class and re-celebrate the fall class. So we will acknowledge and celebrate these 100 people on an ongoing basis all year long. And we will draw from that group the people who will be the conversation leaders during our event in November.
Awesome. I know we're extremely excited about the partnership that we have with TAtech and also the collaboration we're having on this event. So thank you for that. And like I said, we're super excited about it. So I have 2 more serious questions, and then we're going to get into something a little bit more fun, some rapid fire questions. One of them I'm just going to throw in there that you're probably not prepared for, but we'll ask it anyway. So I like the whole impromptu thing, and it's fun. So as long as I'm not the one answering the question. So I know that you're writing a book about technology and some other issues that will affect our lives in the coming decades. Do you want to talk just a little bit about that? I know you've written several books, but I know this will be your latest.
Yeah, well, I mentioned it earlier. I'm writing a book. I've done the research on this intersection of that point in time in 2040 when machines will become forever smarter than humans and the climate will become, or the Earth's surface will become forever hotter and never get cooler.
Uh-huh.
So what I want to do is to try to talk about what I call a perfect catastrophe, but also lay out a roadmap to how we can begin to address those 2 crises right now. The things that we can do to really be the masters of our future rather than the victim. Because I think if we can get past that point of no return and turn the crises into opportunities, we will introduce a new era that I call the Renaissance. You know, the Renaissance was all about looking backwards to classical thinking, classical philosophy, classical literature, and bringing it into the modern era. The Renaissance won't look backwards, it will look forward. It will look at how can humans work in a world where there is very little, if any, paid employment, because machines will be doing most of the work. And how can humans better treat their planet so that they leave the Earth better off for their kids and grandkids than it was when they arrived.
Awesome. Any more plugs for that book? I'm trying to give you some time to.
Well, you don't want to get me going down that path too far, but it will be out. It will be out in January of 2021. And I've decided that I think this is such an important issue that we're going to, for the first 6 months or so, we're going to offer it for free to anybody who wants it. It'll be a free download for Kindle, and I hope that people will read it. I think it employs a technique that I call newsfeed realism, which takes the kinds of information that you see in your newsfeed every day and extrapolates it into what it might be like once we've passed this point of no return. So there is a fictional component to the book, and then I think I'm up to 185 footnotes. A lot of research went into this book, so it's based on fact, it's based on science, but there's also an opportunity to kind of imagine what it would be like if we don't attend to this problem, and if we do, how much better it will be.
Nice. I was getting ready to ask you for the friends and family discount book, but now that you're offering it for free, I guess I don't have to ask that question later. So
I'll send you the link as soon as it's ready.
Awesome. One other question I want to ask before we get into having some fun. So what advice would you give employers and talent acquisition professionals as it relates to HR technology and kind of fitting in with kind of the changes that are kind of taking place right now? I know, tough question.
Well, I think this is not new. It's certainly not new from me, but I think that one does not have to be a computer scientist, a data maven. One simply needs to get to the point where he or she is comfortable with technology and uses it as a tool, which is all it is, in his or her work. So I think the most important skill that people need to have is the skill of continuous learning. They have to believe that they're never too old, never too experienced, never too senior to get better, and that part of their job, part of their career advancement is that continuous acquisition of new skills. I think the greatest danger that we in talent acquisition have is the habit trap. We kind of get into a rut of doing things the same way. It gets comfortable. We understand how it works. It's familiar. And we humans as a species just don't like change very much. And unfortunately, the world that we are in, we talked about the accelerating pace of the introduction of this new technology. The world we're in is going to be one of not only continuous change, but accelerating change. And the only way to keep up, the only way to maintain one's position with relation to this technology, in my opinion, is through continuous learning.
Awesome. Great answer. So like I mentioned, we're going to have some fun. We do this at the end of all of our podcasts. Like I said, I'm going to throw you for a loop on some of these, because I'm sure you probably weren't ready for these. But feel free to say whatever comes to your mind when I ask these questions. So, cell phone of choice, Apple or Android?
Apple.
Very good answer. I know you went to West Point, and we mentioned this earlier that you are a graduate of West Point. If Navy and Air Force played in a football game, who would you root for, Air Force or Navy?
Notre Dame.
Wow. Wow.
No, I mean, I'd love to see those two schools masquerade as military academies, play football. It would be entertaining. I don't know whom I would probably, root for Navy in the first half and Air Force in the second half, because no matter how hard we compete with one another, they are comrades in arms. We need them, and we depend on them. So the competition ends at the edge of the field.
Awesome. All right. So most people know that I'm a big Ohio State fan. So in the game, Ohio State versus Michigan, who would you root for?
Well, based on what you just said, I guess I better root for Ohio State.
Oh, I love that answer. Go Buck. All right. Seriously, this is not a serious question, but quality of life or quantity of life? And I guess it is a serious question, really. So,
I think quality of life. I mean, we just had a perfect example of that with Chadwick. And he didn't live a very long life, but man, did he live a high quality one.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't even have known he was sick all that entire time. So, what is one of the things you would put on your bucket list?
Can I put two?
I will give you two.
Okay. Well, the first one, I mean, I'm a writer, as you mentioned. I've written over 24 books. So I'd like to write a book that really had a profound impact on its readers. I think that's every writer's dream. And the second is, I grew up in Verona, Italy. And I would like to go back and spend more time there. I think it's a magical city, and it's a little bit off the beaten track for most tourists, which really helps it preserve its character and culture. And I'd like to spend some serious time there.
That is one of the areas I would, well, not that particular city, but Italy would definitely be a place I would consider, if I'm fortunate enough to ever retire, that would be a place that I would like to spend a lot of time there. The times I've been, it was amazing. So definitely understand why you would put that on your bucket list. What's the most important thing you've learned in life?
That's easy. Nothing's more important than family and friends.
Nice. I know that you are a lifelong learner. What are you currently learning? I know a lot of us have picked up different things during COVID. I've actually picked up bourbon drinking. But what are you currently learning right now?
Well, one thing I'm learning is how to manage my waistline in a quarantine.
How's that looking out?
That's proven to be a great learning challenge. But my son was at one point a sous chef, and he has got me hooked on cooking. So I'm learning to cook different dishes, and that's been a lot of fun for me.
Have you found a favorite dish that you enjoy cooking so far?
I do a veal scallopini with capers that I'm pretty proud of.
Nice.
It's a New York Times recipe, so I can't claim it as my own, but it really is divine, and it's not hard to do.
All right, last question. What is your favorite fast food restaurant?
Oh, the choices are so many. I'd have to say Taco Bell.
Wow.
Yeah, I kind of like that spicy stuff. But I have a son-in-law who is Mexican American, and he really gives me a hard time because to him that's just not authentic food. So, so I have to sneak off to Taco Bell, but I enjoy it.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. Obviously, you're incredibly respected in the industry. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. I know you're extremely busy. And thank you for your continued partnership. I know you and I do differ in how we like our martinis. I know you're a gin person, and I'm a vodka person, but I thoroughly enjoy talking to you every time we have an opportunity to chat, and definitely appreciate, like I mentioned, the partnership. Peter, for the listeners out there, if they want to connect with you, what's the easiest way for them to do that?
Well, my email address is my first and last name, Peter Weddle, that's WEDDLE, at TAtech.org. And Shannon, listen, it's been my pleasure. I mean, I always learn something when I talk to you, and we are equally as excited about our partnership with direct employers. We hope that we can really bring the dialogue between your members and other employers and our members and other folks on the solution provider side. We can bring that dialogue up a notch or two to everyone's benefit.
Well, we definitely appreciate that, and like I mentioned, we're super excited and just enjoy our time we get to spend with you. So thanks again, and I'm sure we will talk soon.
I'll look forward to it.
Awesome.
Thank you for tuning in for another episode of the DE Talk podcast. Stay connected with direct employers on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast to receive notifications of new episodes each month.